right, we're going to move on now to a story that we've covered extensively and I think is going to keep bubbling away. The decision by the Hastings District Council to give the 17 members of its youth council, which is some little project for badge-wearing members of the Model UN, voting rights on some committees and to pay them from the public purse. There is outrage by someone in Hastings about this and real questions about whether or not it is democratic. To discuss it, we are joined now by the local government minister, Simeon Brown. Minister, first, do you think this is a good idea?
No.
Okay, that's very straightforward. Is there anything you can do to stop it?
Well, I've asked the Department of Internal Affairs, the local government team, to give me some advice on it in terms of what can be done. So I'll wait to receive that advice. But I think that, as a starting point, ultimately, members sitting around those tables should be elected, and they should be able to. And there's a role that young people can express their views. A lot of councils have youth councils, which is one way that they can express their views, but to then give them a paid seat around the table, I think, is quite disproportionate.
Yeah. Mayor Sandra Hazelhurst says this is in accordance with the Local Government Act, and Local Government New Zealand thinks it's okay.
Well, Local Government New Zealand's gone woke.
Okay, what makes you say that?
Well, when they're pushing things like this, and there's a priority when most ratepayers actually just want their potholes fixed, they want the pipes fixed, they want councils picking up the rubbish and actually keeping rates down, and that they're pushing ideas such as, giving young people seats around the table, then they've really lost track of what their priorities should be. That's why the Prime Minister gave that speech at the Local Government New Zealand conference.
Yeah, this is kind of like a middle finger back at you guys, isn't it?
Well, ultimately it comes down to priorities. There's an election next year, though, for the voters of New Zealand to be able to determine whether or not they think their local government representatives are on the right track or the wrong track. I think ultimately, as New Zealanders are opening their rates bills and seeing an average 15% increase in their rates bills, they're asking the question, am I getting value for money from the decision makers? And many of them are really wondering whether or not that is the case.
Mm. So, at present, if you were to be able to communicate with Sandra Hazelhurst, what would your message to her be?
Oh, my message is quite clear. Look, this is not a priority. Ultimately, I think the voters in the Hawke's Bay want the focus to be on fixing roads, making sure that they're
recovering from weather events.
Making sure they're delivering the pipes in the ground, unlocking land for housing. And efficient services for local ratepayers. That's, I think, what ratepayers across New Zealand are asking for, and my expectation is that local government should be focused on that. We're going to be changing the Local Government Act to get rid of the full well-beings and refocus local government on the core services, and that will certainly help with sending that message.
Wow, that's a very clear message, and I thank you for it. I think many people in Hastings are going to thank you for coming out so clearly on this issue. Look, just while you're there, I'm also reading that real confusion and difficulty in Wellington in selling those airport shares. Are you still... We have spoken previously about Wellington. You said basically you had a watching brief on it. You were keeping a close eye on Wellington. In your opinion, have things improved or deteriorated in terms of the governance of local governance of Wellington City?
Yeah, look, I think ultimately it's a decision for the council as to whether or not they sell those shares. We are, obviously keeping an eye on the issue. I think there's a council meeting coming up next week where they'll be determining their position on it. Local elected members are elected to make these decisions on behalf of their communities, but at the end of the day, they've also got to make decisions, and so we're keeping an eye on it. But at this stage, it's up to the local members to make their minds up.
All right. Overall, Minister, and I go back, and you've mentioned it, you brought it up, that speech, that very clear speech and message that the Prime Minister delivered at the LGNZ conference in Wellington. It is my observation that, if you like, partisan or party politics is now more evident in local body politics than it has ever been before. And in fact, it would seem to me that some councils, some local authorities are in fact anti-government because their political loyalties lie on the other side of the political spectrum or elsewhere on the political spectrum than in the camp of the coalition partners of the government. And that would seem to me to be a very negative and destructive development in democracy in New Zealand.
Yeah, look, I mean, ultimately, these mayors and councillors are elected on behalf of their communities, and we, with respect to that, they have a right to have their say and make decisions on behalf of their communities. I guess all I'm saying is, the focus of local government should be very much on the basics. We want to ensure that the legislative framework does that. We've got a work program now underway to help support that. And our message is very clear as to what our expectations are as to whether or not they whether or not they want to oppose us or work with us. Ultimately, that's a decision for them. But at the end of the day, when it comes to those Hawke's Bay councils, we are working closely with them around the roading recovery. That is a top priority. We are focused on that, and we have to work closely with them, whoever's elected. Whether or not we agree on every issue, I don't think we ever will. And that's fine. I just think there are some examples though where you have to wonder whether or not the priorities are in order.
And giving kids, unelected kids, they're not even elected by their classmates, to be honest.
Yes, I think exactly.